The morning of the private viewing, I received 3 texts from my mother. Family meeting at the Sterling at 10 a.m. Your aunt has news about Brandon's new place. Please dress appropriately. This is important for family unity. Your father and I expect you there. I stared at the messages while finishing my coffee in the small studio apartment I'd maintained in the city's older district. The furniture was minimal: a bed, a desk, 2 chairs. The kind of place that made my family shake their heads whenever they visited, which was rare. They didn't know about the investment portfolio. They didn't know about the holding companies. They didn't know that 3 years ago I'd started acquiring properties throughout the downtown corridor with money I'd made from a software algorithm I'd sold to a financial firm. My family still thought I worked in computers, some vague technical job they didn't understand and didn't ask about. I arrived at the Sterling Tower at 9:55 a.m. The building rose 42 floors above the downtown skyline, all glass and steel, the kind of construction that had transformed this neighborhood over the past 5 years. I'd watched its development closely, very closely. The lobby receptionist smiled professionally. Good morning. Are you here for the private viewing? Yes. The Morrison family. 11th floor. The elevator on the right. I rode up alone, studying the interior. Marble floors, high-end fixtures. The maintenance would be expensive. The HOA fees would be astronomical. I wondered if Brandon had considered that. The elevator doors opened to reveal my family clustered near the floor-to-ceiling windows of what would be the penthouse level. My mother wore her pearl necklace, the one reserved for important occasions. My father stood with his hands clasped behind his back, surveying the view like he owned it. My Aunt Patricia held court in the center, gesturing expansively while Brandon, my cousin golden child, perpetual success story, grinned beside her. There she is, my aunt said, her tone suggesting I'd kept them waiting. Though I was exactly on time. We're so glad you could make it, Alexis. Of course. I kept my voice neutral. Brandon stepped forward, hand extended. Good to see you, Alex. What do you think of the place? Haven't seen it yet. It's incredible. He pulled out his phone, already scrolling through photos. 3,200 square feet. 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths. The master suite has a walk-in closet bigger than your whole apartment. My mother winced slightly at that comparison, but didn't correct him. The view alone, Brandon continued, leading me toward the windows. You can see the entire harbor. The building has a rooftop pool, a fitness center, concierge service. There's a private wine storage room in the basement. Sounds expensive, worth every penny. He showed me his phone screen, an Instagram story he'd already drafted, complete with the caption "New Chapter, New Heights," literally. Penthouse, living success. You haven't closed yet, I observed. Formality. He waved his hand dismissively. We're signing papers next week. I've already hired movers for Friday. Aunt Patricia joined us at the window. Brandon has worked so hard for this opportunity. After everything he's accomplished with the marketing firm, he deserves a space that reflects his success. I nodded, saying nothing. The family is very proud, my mother added, joining the conversation. It's wonderful to see the younger generation doing so well. The implication hung in the air. Some of the younger generation, at least. My father cleared his throat. Patricia was just telling us about the building. Very impressive development. The Meridian Group, isn't it? That's right. Aunt Patricia confirmed. Top-tier developers. They only work on premium properties. Brandon was lucky to get in before prices went even higher. How much? I asked. Brandon hesitated, then shrugged. 2.4, but it's an investment. These penthouses will be worth 3.5 in 5 years. I walked away from the group, moving through the empty space. The floors were polished concrete. Expensive choice. The kitchen featured imported Italian cabinets. The bathrooms had heated floors. Everything was exactly as I'd specified when I'd reviewed the building plans 8 months ago. The lower floors are nice too. Brandon called after me. Not quite this caliber, obviously, but solid units. Good bones throughout the building. I moved to a different window, one that faced west. From here I could see 3 other properties I owned. A mixed-use development on Park Avenue, a renovated historic building on 3rd Street, and a 12-story office complex near the courthouse. Actually, Aunt Patricia said, her voice taking on that particular tone that preceded family pronouncements. We wanted everyone here today for a reason. I turned back toward the group. She stood with one hand on Brandon's shoulder. Your Uncle Thomas and I have been discussing family priorities. Brandon has an incredible opportunity here, but the down payment has stretched his resources somewhat. The family has always supported each other during important transitions. My mother nodded encouragingly. We were hoping, Aunt Patricia continued, looking directly at me, that you might be willing to help with the HOA fees for the first year, just until Brandon gets fully settled. It would be a wonderful gesture of family support. The room went quiet. The HOA is $4,200 a month, Brandon added quickly. I know that sounds like a lot, but for a building like this, it's actually reasonable. And I'd pay you back, obviously, once the marketing firm's next round of bonuses comes through. Let your cousin have the penthouse, Aunt Patricia said, her voice firm. This is his moment. He's earned this. I looked at my mother, who offered an encouraging smile, at my father, who nodded slightly, at Brandon, who had the grace to look somewhat embarrassed. I'll think about it, I said. We were hoping for an answer today, Aunt Patricia pressed. The closing is next week. Brandon needs to know he has family support. I said I'll think about it. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Of course, my mother interjected quickly. Take your time, dear. This is a big commitment. Not really, Aunt Patricia muttered, just loud enough to hear. I spent the next 20 minutes touring the rest of the penthouse, while my family discussed Brandon's furniture plans. He'd already hired an interior designer, already selected a color palette, already planned a housewarming party for the week after move-in. When I finally left, I didn't take the elevator down. Instead, I took the stairs, stopping at every floor. I examined the hallways, tested the stairwell doors, noted the condition of the lighting fixtures. I checked the mechanical room on the 33rd floor, and the maintenance areas on the 20th. A building manager found me on the 15th floor. Can I help you, miss? Just looking around. The penthouse viewing is on 42. I know. He looked confused, but didn't stop me as I continued down. By the time I reached the lobby, I'd seen everything I needed to see. The building was well constructed, properly maintained, and had excellent tenant retention on the lower floors. The commercial spaces on the ground level were all occupied. The parking garage had 98% utilization. I walked out into the cool October morning and called my attorney. Melissa, it's Alexis Morrison. I want to make an offer on the Sterling Tower. The whole building. Yes, the owners have been resistant to selling. They want to maintain management control. Offer them 15% above market value. Cash. 30-day closing. There was a pause on the other end. That's going to be approximately $47 million. I'm aware. You're certain about this? Completely. I'll draw up the papers today. I hung up and walked 3 blocks to my office, a modest suite in a building I'd purchased 2 years ago. My assistant David looked up from his computer. How was the family event? Educational. I sat down at my desk. Can you pull the current tenant list for the Sterling Tower? I want to know exactly who's living there, and what their lease terms are. The Sterling, that's the building my cousin is trying to buy a penthouse in. Yes. David's expression shifted to understanding. Oh. Also, find out what moving company Brandon Morrison hired. I want to know what day they're scheduled on it. Over the next 7 days, I watched from a distance as my family's group chat exploded with activity. Brandon posted daily updates, photos of furniture deliveries to a storage unit, paint swatches, the designer's mood boards. My aunt shared every post, adding commentary about Brandon's excellent taste and bright future. My mother called twice to gently remind me about the HOA fee offer. I told her I was still considering it. On Wednesday, Melissa called. The Sterling ownership accepted. They're shocked but thrilled. Apparently they've been dealing with some cash flow issues, and this solves multiple problems. We can close Friday if you can get the funds transferred. Do it. There's one complication. There's a penthouse unit with a pending sale. The buyers are scheduled to close next Tuesday. Brandon Morrison. You know him. He's my cousin. Silence. Then Alexis, do you want me to moving? Honor all existing leases.
Nice.
Honor all existing leases, but any pending sales that haven't closed need to be reviewed. Send me the full list, including your cousins, especially my cousins. Thursday afternoon. I received a text from Brandon. Big day tomorrow. Movers coming at 8 a.m. Housewarming party 2 weeks from Saturday. You're invited, obviously. Bring a date if you want. He included 3 photos. The moving truck reservation, a catering quote for the party, and a professionally printed invitation with his name embossed in gold. Friday morning at 6 a.m. I met Melissa at the downtown office tower, where the closing was held. The Sterling's previous ownership group, 3 developers who'd grown tired of property management, sat across the conference table looking relieved. We appreciate you moving so quickly on this, the lead developer said. The building is a great asset. We just need to liquidate for other projects. I understand. There are a few pending items. 3 commercial lease renewals next quarter, some routine maintenance scheduled, and 1 residential sale in the penthouse that's supposed to close Tuesday. I've reviewed everything. I signed the last document. I'll be handling all pending matters personally. We shook hands. The wire transfer confirmed. At 7:47 a.m., I became the owner of the Sterling Tower, all 42 floors, 387 residential units, 12 commercial spaces, and 1 parking garage, with 450 spots. Melissa gathered the paperwork. What do you want to do about the penthouse situation? Let it play out naturally. That seems cruel. Reality isn't cruel, it just is. At 8:15 a.m., I was in my car 3 blocks away, when Brandon posted a video to his Instagram story. The moving truck had arrived. He stood on the sidewalk outside the Sterling, arms spread wide, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. Moving day. Watch this space for transformation updates. The penthouse life officially begins now. Comments flooded in immediately. So proud of you. Living the dream. Can't wait to see the place. I drove to my office and worked through the morning, handling emails and reviewing reports from my property managers. At 11:30, David knocked on my door. The building manager at the Sterling just called. Apparently there's a situation. I'm aware. Brandon Morrison and his movers are in the lobby. The manager told them the penthouse sale didn't close. Because it didn't. He's asking to speak to the new owner. Tell him I'll be there at noon. I arrived at the Sterling at exactly 12 o'clock. The lobby was chaos. Brandon stood near the reception desk, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing wildly. 2 movers sat on the marble floor, near the elevator, surrounded by boxes and furniture wrapped in moving blankets. My aunt and uncle had arrived. Aunt Patricia's face was red. Uncle Thomas looked bewildered. My mother was there too, along with my father. They stood awkwardly near the entrance, clearly unsure what to do. The building manager, a professional man named Robert, whom I'd spoken with twice during due diligence, saw me first. Relief crossed his face. Miss Morrison, thank you for coming. The use of my last name made several heads turn. Brandon lowered his phone. Alex, what are you doing here? I own the building. The lobby went completely silent. You what? Aunt Patricia stepped forward. I purchased the Sterling Tower. The sale closed this morning. Brandon laughed, a nervous, confused sound. That's not possible. I'm buying the penthouse. We had a deal with the previous owners. That sale didn't close. I'm under no obligation to honor pending agreements that weren't finalized. But we had. He looked at Robert. Tell her we had a contract. Robert cleared his throat. You had a purchase agreement with the Meridian Group. They no longer own the building. All pending sales are subject to new owner approval. This is ridiculous. Aunt Patricia's voice rose. Brandon has movers here. He's paid deposits. He's given notice at his current apartment. That's unfortunate, I said calmly. Alexis, my mother moved closer, her voice low. Surely we can work something out. Brandon has invested so much in this. He invested in an assumption. He's family. That's why I'm here explaining in person rather than having my attorney send a letter. Brandon's face had gone pale. Why would you do this? What did I ever do to you? You posted photos on social media of a property you didn't own. You told people you'd earned something you were buying with family help. You bragged about your success while dismissing mine. I kept my voice level professional, but mostly you assumed. You assumed the deal was done. You assumed I'd help pay your bills. You assumed you were entitled to something you hadn't actually secured. That penthouse is worth $2.4 million. Uncle Thomas interjected. You can't possibly. I can. And I did. I now own this building, which means I own that penthouse. I also own the parking garage, where Brandon's car is currently parked without authorization. Would you like me to have it towed? This is insane. Brandon's hands were shaking. You bought an entire building just to screw me over. I bought a building because it's an excellent investment. You being affected is incidental. $47 million just to make a point. $47 million to acquire a property that will generate approximately $4.2 million in annual revenue. The fact that it also prevents you from making a purchase you couldn't actually afford is simply a bonus. Aunt Patricia stepped forward, her face now white with rage. You spiteful petty little. Careful, I said quietly. You're standing in my lobby. Robert, please escort these people out. The movers can leave the items on the curb. Mr. Morrison's vehicle has 1 hour to vacate the parking garage before I have it removed. You can't do this, Brandon said desperately. I have rights. I'll sue. Your attorney will explain that you have no standing. The sale hadn't closed. You're welcome to try. Of course. But I employ the firm that drafted the property laws in this city. It won't go well. My mother touched my arm. Alexis, please, think about what you're doing to this family. I have thought about it. I turned to face her directly. For 3 years I've listened to comments about my small apartment and my computer job. I've heard the comparisons to Brandon's success. I've watched the family celebrate his achievements while dismissing mine. Last week, Aunt Patricia asked me to subsidize his lifestyle while telling me to let him have this moment. We didn't mean. Yes, you did. You meant exactly that. I gestured around the lobby. This building is worth $63 million. I own it outright. I also own 8 other properties in this city, worth approximately $240 million combined. I have a liquid net worth of $137 million. I built this from nothing, while you all thought I was struggling. My father spoke for the first time. Why didn't you tell us? Because you never asked. You assumed. Just like Brandon assumed the penthouse was his. Brandon had sunk onto one of the lobby couches, head in his hands. The movers were already carrying boxes back toward the truck. Aunt Patricia's expression had shifted from rage to something harder to define. What happens now? Now you leave my building. Brandon finds a new place to live. The family learns that success isn't always visible, and assumptions are dangerous. And the penthouse, Uncle Thomas asked quietly, stays empty until I decide otherwise. Maybe I'll renovate it. Maybe I'll rent it. Maybe I'll let it sit vacant. It's mine to decide. You're really going to do this? Brandon looked up, eyes red. After everything, you're really going to be this cruel? I'm not being cruel. I'm being clear. You wanted the penthouse because it represented status. You wanted to show people you'd made it. But you hadn't actually made anything. You were leveraging family money and connections to buy an appearance of success. And you're so much better. I built something real. I took risks. I made investments. I failed multiple times before finding what worked. And I did it all while my family looked past me, through me, or down at me. I moved toward the entrance. Robert will handle the rest. You have 1 hour. I walked out into the cool November air. Behind me I could hear Aunt Patricia's raised voice, my mother's attempts at peacemaking, the movers' confusion. My phone buzzed, a text from David. Building manager confirms all materials removed. Parking cleared. How did it go? Exactly as expected, I typed back. Over the next week, the family group chat went silent. Then gradually, Messages began appearing. My mother, attempting casual conversation about Thanksgiving plans. My father, forwarding an article about real estate investment. Small overtures, carefully worded. Brandon's Instagram went dark for 3 days, then returned with a post about setbacks being setups for comebacks and learning that not all doors are meant to open. The comments were supportive, none of them knowing what had actually happened. Aunt Patricia didn't reach out at all. 10 days after the lobby incident, I received a call from an unknown number. Alexis, it's Brandon. I almost didn't answer. Yes, I wanted to apologize for everything, the comments, the assumptions, the Instagram stuff. I was out of line. Okay, my parents are furious with you, but I think I understand why you did it. I mean, it's still extreme, but I understand the point. What point is that? That I wasn't ready, that I was showing off before I'd actually accomplished anything. He paused. I found a place, a regular apartment, 2 bedrooms in the West District. It's nice, normal, I can actually afford it on my own. That's good. I wanted to ask, the penthouse, are you going to sell it? Eventually, would you ever consider? No. Right. Okay. Another pause. For what it's worth, I told my parents what you said about owning 8 other properties. Mom didn't believe it until Dad looked up public records. You actually own that whole block on 3rd Street, among other things. That's actually really impressive. I wish you'd told us. We would have. Would have what? Treated me differently. Respected me. That was never about lack of information, Brandon. It was about assumptions. Fair point. He sighed. I'm sorry. Really, I know that doesn't change anything. But I needed to say it. After he hung up, I sat in my office looking out at the city skyline. The Sterling Tower was visible from here, its glass facade catching the afternoon light. Melissa called that evening. I've had 3 inquiries about the penthouse, all legitimate buyers. One's offering 2.6 million. Hold for now. You're not going to sell it. Not yet. What are you waiting for? I thought about Brandon's Instagram posts, my aunt's declarations, my family's assumptions. I'm not sure yet. 2 weeks later, I attended Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house. The whole family was there. Aunts, uncles, cousins. The atmosphere was strained. Brandon was polite, distant. He'd brought his girlfriend, who seemed unaware of the underlying tension. Aunt Patricia barely acknowledged my presence. Uncle Thomas made awkward small talk about the weather. My mother had seated me at the end of the table, away from the main action. During dessert, my father stood to make his traditional Thanksgiving speech. He thanked everyone for coming, mentioned family bonds, expressed gratitude for health and prosperity. Then he paused. I also want to acknowledge that family isn't just about support in the ways we've always done things. Sometimes, family means being honest. It means recognizing each person's achievements, even when we don't fully understand them. He looked directly at me. Alexis, we owe you an apology. We made assumptions. We overlooked your success because it didn't look like what we expected success to look like. That was wrong. The table went quiet. I know things have been difficult since the situation with Brandon and the building, but I want you to know that we're proud of what you've built, even if we didn't show it before. Aunt Patricia stared at her plate. Brandon nodded slightly. My mother had tears in her eyes. Thank you, I said quietly. The rest of the evening was careful, measured. People asked questions about my properties, my investments, my plans. Real questions this time. Not dismissive observations. As I was leaving, Brandon caught me at the door. The apartment I got, it's actually in one of your buildings, the one on Park Avenue. I didn't realize until I looked up the ownership records. I know I approved your lease application. His eyes widened. You did. You had good credit, steady income, solid references. You qualified on your own merits. Even after everything. Business isn't personal, Brandon. You met the requirements. That's all that matters. He looked like he wanted to say more, but just nodded. I drove home through the city, past The Sterling Tower with its lit windows and its empty penthouse on the 42nd floor. The next morning, I called Melissa. The penthouse, put it on the market, 3.2 million. That's nearly $1 million above what you said Brandon was paying. The market has adjusted, someone will pay it, and if they don't, then I'll wait. 3 weeks later, a tech entrepreneur from California bought the penthouse for 3.4 million. She planned to use it occasionally, when visiting her company's East Coast office. I signed the papers without ceremony. The following Sunday, I drove past the Sterling Tower. The new owner had already moved in. I could see furniture through the floor-to-ceiling windows, plants on the balcony, signs of life at the top of the building I owned. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Monthly revenue reports are ready. The Sterling is performing above projections. Send them over, I replied. I parked near my small studio apartment, the one I'd kept despite everything, despite the portfolio, despite the family drama. It was still quiet here, still simple, still mine on my own terms. Inside, I made coffee and reviewed the reports. The Sterling Tower was indeed performing well. The commercial spaces had renewed their leases. Residential retention was at 96%. The property was generating exactly the returns I'd projected. Brandon's Instagram popped up in my feed. A photo of his new apartment, captioned, "Sometimes the best view isn't the highest one. Grateful for new perspective." I didn't like or comment, just closed the app and returned to the revenue reports. The penthouse at the Sterling Tower now belonged to someone who'd earned the money to buy it. Brandon lived in an apartment he could afford on his own. My family had learned that success came in forms they hadn't recognized, and I owned 42 floors of prime real estate in the city's most desirable district, along with a portfolio that continued to grow. While I sipped coffee in a studio apartment most people would consider beneath someone of my means, the view from here was just fine.